And welcome to another edition of the Bullheaded Podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebush. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man. Got to witness history last night at the Blackhawks game, man. Alex Ovechkin hitting that 800 goal mark. I know we're not a hockey podcast here, but he did it on a hat trick, 3 goals in one game, man.
Hat trick.
Unbelievable. He's only one of 3 players over 800 goals for his career, and he's chasing the GOAT himself, Wayne Gretzky, man. So it was very cool to see live. It's first major sports milestone I've gotten to see in person. So even though we were in the 300 level of the UC Zoo, beautiful bird's eye view, man. So congrats to Ovechkin, man. That's a big, big milestone.
I know this dude's famous because I'm not a hockey fan and I've heard of his name. So he's
There
got to
you
be
go.
good. He's got to be
Yep.
good. He's got,
Yep.
and he does not play for the Blackhawks, right? He does not play for
No,
them,
he
right?
does not. He plays for the Washington, D.C. Capitals, man.
He got a
He's
hat
not
trick.
even got a hat trick, and that's what got him to the 800 mark. So it was
That's wild.
pretty epic. Pretty
That
epic.
is his definition of epic. Holy cow.
Yeah, really cool to see live.
Yeah, man. Like you say, Ovechkin, I feel like him and Crosby are only the two staples of hockey I guess you would say
Most
know
people
about.
know.
So I think that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. 800 goals is 800 goals. So shout out to Ovechkin for achieving that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't even know. Do they have fantasy
Oh, yeah.
for hockey?
Oh yeah, they have hockey. Yeah, they pretty much run aligned with the NBA season. You know, that's how I kind of keep track of it usually. Because I mean, I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but it is entertaining. And the Blackhawks had a dynasty there for a bit when we were in high school, early college. So kind of had to keep up with it back in the day.
It's pretty
But-
cool. Shout out to Ovechkin. That's what's
Yep.
up. But brought up fantasy because, as most know, fantasy playoffs are starting this week for a lot of people, and some people had great seasons. Some people had seasons to forget. I feel like with the amount of injuries and just the parity around, scoring was a little bit down in the leagues this year. Some people had different types of strategies of how they drafted and things of that nature. So we're going to be going with our awards with fantasy this year, just based off the regular season, whether you made the playoffs or not. And I guess the first award we can start with is the MVP. And Peebush, I'm gonna start with you.
Man, this is tough, Zoo, because I think I know who you're gonna go with here. So I'm gonna go with a little different of a guy. I'm gonna go with Josh Jacobs, man.
Mhm.
I think he was an MVP for a lot of people. I think you could also kind of consider him a value pick this year. Most people
For
had him in
sure.
the late 4th round, probably going into the 5th round. I think I might have brought him up, early NFL podcast talk this year, that he was in a contract year. He was kind of a put up against the corner. They didn't pick up his option out there in Vegas, and this guy's, he's put up 1,400 yards rushing in 14 weeks. There you go. That's 100 a game guarantee. He's got 10 touchdowns, 350 receiving yards, and he's really carried this Vegas team to be somewhat mediocre. They should be a lot better, man, because if that passing game and Derek Carr was at a different level, I think this team would be absolutely deadly. But yeah, man, I'm looking at Josh Jacobs. He's, if you're getting drafted in the 5th round, maybe being a top 15 running back, and you end the regular season of fantasy at number 1, you can't go wrong there. If you picked him, it is a value pick, but he's got to be the MVP for a lot of people that had him this year, because I'm sure you also got another stud running back that hopefully performed for you as well. So absolutely unbelievable numbers. And I'm sure he'll keep carrying you throughout the playoffs, because that's really the only way the Raiders are able to move the ball, other than chucking it down the field for a hopeful Devontae one-handed catch, man. So feeding the workhorse, he's got to be my MVP for this year.
Yeah, it's a great pick. He's the only running back this year averaging 20 points a game this year.
There you go.
It's quite surprising. Only one. Usually there's multiple, but he's the only one this year with scoring being a little down this year. So shout out to Josh Jacobs. This is a guy that I completely missed, because usually this is the guy that historically in the previous drafts, even as rookie, he was like a 3rd rounder. Obviously, he has a stud season, and then he was like a 1st, 2nd rounder for a couple of years. And then surprisingly this year, ESPN had their ranks drop down, new coaching. They didn't expect him to be the workhorse. He was more like a 4th, 5th rounder, maybe 6th rounder in some leagues. So he was a very mid-round pick. Like, he was in that RB dead zone, but turns out he's the RB1 of this NFL season, man. So I completely missed that, man, even though this one, I look back at it, hindsight is 2020, but I look back at it, man, that was obvious, man. This dude was a consensus 1st rounder, 2nd rounder for
He's a workhorse.
Consecutive season, and he's still young on an offense that was Derek Carr a little shaky this year, but it's still productive offense. So Josh Jacobs, shout out to him, 20 points, man. Before me, man, I got to go to Dallas, man. Tony P, man. Tony Pollard, man. Dude, I got to go with Sean's guy, Tony Pollard. This is a guy I was sleeping on him all year, man. Every time I saw Tony Pollard, I thought of Alexander Madison, man, a handcuff. That's all I saw of him. If he was an insurance play, if Ezekiel Elliott goes down with injury, Tony Pollard would be an RB1. That was my whole mindset this entire season. But what I didn't expect is this dude getting 10 touches as a rusher. As a pass catcher, I knew he's going to get a decent amount of touches because that's what he does. But as a running back, they use him a decent amount. And when I watch him run, man, he quick little thing, man. He quick.
Explosive.
Is the definition of thunder or lightning because the way they play is very, very different. Like one, Zeke's the bruiser, the goal line type of back, more like the Jamal Williams type of dude, like that type of back. Well, Tony P is that DeAndre Swift, fast little back, the pass catching back. And his explosive ability, man, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40-yard touchdown runs, man. Guy's explosive, man, and they're utilizing him a lot. And as a run-heavy offense,
for sure, bro.
Run-heavy offense, this elite offense. I knew Dallas was going to be good this year, but, man, their offense has been elite this year. And they were able to sustain two running backs. With Zeke going out, Tony P took over. It was dropping 30-point nuclear games. And then Zeke came back, and he was still dropping 20-point games.
Yeah.
Like Tony P, like he playing like Alvin Kamara and that Mark Ingram team. That's New Orleans Saints a couple of years back when you had two running backs in the top 10. So you had two RB1s on one offense, which is extremely rare because the amount of touches needed to provide that much output is really, really hard to do. But this year I'm looking at around right now, Ezekiel Elliott, this guy's still balling, getting touchdowns like every 4 consecutive games right now. So he's been balling, getting 14, 15 points. But you got Tony P with that higher upside with that receiving ability. And if you got this dude was like an 8th, 9th, maybe 10th, 11th rounder. And he's giving you RB1 numbers. This is the number 7 running back in fantasy football right now. And this dude, man, and this pick hurts a little more because I had the opportunity to trade for him. And I look back at that, man. I'm like, I was thinking about Tony P at the flex. Tony P, I was struggling with the Curtis Samuels of the world, man. It was rough with the flex. It was a rough year. Cortland Sutton. It's been a rough year at the flex for me, man. If I got Tony P, man, maybe I'll be in the playoffs right now. But it was a bad GM move, man. Didn't get the deal done. And Tony P, that is my MVP of the season, man. That is my MVP because this dude, unbelievable player.
I think he benefited a lot when Cooper Rush was there too, because they couldn't rely on as much on the passing game as they usually would, and we've seen the past couple of weeks with Dak. So that's definitely one that I'm looking at too. The fact that he had Cooper Rush, the easy checkdowns. He's got 12 total touchdowns this year so far, man. Tony P. So hell of a pick. I did trade him. I did get Ramondre in the back, so not too bad. Another kind of surprise play this year. But yeah, man, that's a great pick, Tony P. Especially in that 9th. I think he went 9th round in our league, Zoo. 9th round.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
For me, just personally, I have 2. Just for my team specifically, Jalen Hurts is my MVP because he absolutely carried because the amount of running back injuries that I suffered, especially from my set strategy. Shout out to my late round picks and running back picks that I was able to, decipher and get to the next or get to the playoffs. So I would say Jalen Hurts for me personally. And also because, I know Jalen Hurts the year before had a pretty good year. And you could see the signs, kind of like how Justin Fields had like a streak where it's like he's going to be really intriguing next year. I think Jalen Hurts maybe had a little bit of a better year last year. But, I still think a lot of people, I always talk about I'm in a 14-team league, which is like my big money league. So it's like there's a lot of people who have different strategies in how they draft. And I still think Jalen Hurts got a little bit disrespected just in how he drafted. But I'm going to be completely transparent. Did not expect him to be, I think he's number 1 overall. Or maybe number 1 or number 2.
Number one.
I did not expect that. Did not. And I think a lot of that's because of his passing ability has really taken off. And many will say that's because of Devontae Smith taking another step and A.J. Brown. And it's, sneakily, Miles Sanders has been kind of good this year. He hasn't been the bust that everybody like Matthew Berry. I love you, guy, but he likes to always say Miles Sanders is a bust. And I think Miles Sanders is like at least this year. Yeah, I think in this year he's played a little bit over where he's probably been drafted.
10 touchdowns.
Sure. Yeah.
10 touchdowns.
And he's a pretty decent pass catcher outside of it. And then I think a lot of it too, you got to give credit to Nick Sirianni because he definitely plans that offense around Jalen's strengths and the OC, whoever the OC is. But like he's able to put Jalen Hurts and a lot of his weapons in really good positions because Hurts has had a lot of 3 touchdown games. So I would say for my team, it's definitely been Jalen Hurts. But there's been a receiver that he probably was a top 3 receiver that got picked. It's all interchangeable. But Justin Jefferson, man, I'm telling you, he's going to change up how people draft next year. He's going to change it up. I'm sticking by it. He's going to change up how a lot of people attack drafts next year because, like, I think, was it this past year? He just had 100 and something yards. Was it 100?
He had 200. He had 200.
Yeah.
He had 200. He had 223 yards on 15 targets. 15 targets in 11 receptions. 15 targets, man. Like
had to keep up with the Lions.
Dude, yeah. Well, I'm telling you. And this dude does not drop passes, man.
Yeah,
he does not drop. Double cover, man, it don't matter. Get your hands on the ball. He catching it, man. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Play football.
So for me, you know, I know Justin Jefferson was picked maybe first, second round, whatever. He was picked super early.
Oh yeah.
But I think there's going to be an extra level that he's going to go to next year, and that's part of my reasoning of why I think he's one of the MVPs outside of just my own team because I wasn't able to get him. But I'm going to be really interested in how he's attacked next year, just in terms of drafts. Because man, when you get these amount of targets, and I know we all like to bag on Kirk Cousins and say he's just an average quarterback, which he has moments where he looks really average, especially on like Monday Night Football games, games that have any type of prime time, any type of primetime game, which is truly understandable. But one thing he is really good about is getting the ball to Justin Jefferson, and that's just one thing I'm looking at for next year when you're doing your fantasy outlook. So for me, I'm gonna go with Justin Jefferson for sure.
Yeah, I remember we were all like really high on him in the beginning of the year because we all had him for Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, we did.
He has lived up to that hype. He has definitely lived up to that hype. Even with he had some like couple bad games. I remember game 2 and 3, he was having a couple off games, but he bounced back really quickly, man. And this is the one guy who almost broke my rule this year, man. I'm usually RB automatically. But I remember when I was looking at the draft, I had Dalvin Cook and Justin Jeff. I'm just staring at them, man. I was just staring at them. I was like, am I gonna break my rule? And I didn't break my rule, man, but I almost did it for this man. And maybe if I broke my rule, I would actually be relevant this year in the fantasy football playoffs and with my home league. Because my goodness, Dalvin Cook has been extremely frustrating this year. Like
very hot and cold.
His touches has been there every game. Like it's not the volume issue. He just has a bunch of stinkers. 23 yards. Like, come on, bro. Justin Jeff gets that in one catch, man. Like 23 rushing yards, bro. I'm like, bro, you're killing me. I should have taken your teammate, man. I should have taken the teammate because I had that feeling. The way the coach was talking about it, I still remember they said they're going to give him that Cooper Kupp volume, man. The way they utilize him, just all these touches and let him be a playmaker, man. And the coach did not lie, man. They did not lie for once, man, to the media because Jesus Christ, this dude's volume is incredible. And he's just fun to watch, too. So, yeah, Justin Jeff, man. God, number 1 overall player, wide receiver this year, man. Fantasy
for
football.
sure. And respect, there's a little bit of respect to Diggs. He's been up there. Diggs, I think, has always been, he's just a staple. He's always, it's funny. There's one of the reporters years ago, Taylor Rooks. I remember she was having a random conversation on Twitter. And she was talking about like she put up her team or whatever. And I don't think she had like up the scores, like the rankings. And everybody's like, that team is trash. She's like, no, it's not. I have Diggs on my team. Like he's underrated. And that was like 4 years ago. So the thing with Diggs is he's a consistent receiver where I don't know if I would change or alter my drafting strategy with Diggs, but that's another one that's like in that ballpark with Jefferson that with Josh Allen, if you got that elite thrower of the football and you got a receiver who's on that elite track, there could be some altering to how you draft, but moving to the next topic, we can go to Rookie of the Year. I'll go ahead and start this one. This is just an honorary one because I feel like the track he was on, he was going to be.
I know you're going to say it for it.
And that's Breece Hall. Breece Hall. Like for me, man, I had this whole conundrum when I first drafted Breece. Like, don't want to say it was just like a throw in, like I'm just going to draft because I had a strategy to draft Breece. It's just. At the time, I really wanted Travis Etienne because there was just so much hype with Travis.
Yeah.
And for good reason, because you was thinking about his weapons like Christian Kirk on the outside, Trevor Lawrence being his QB, him being hurt the whole year before, like he's going to get a massive amount of touches. At that point, James Robinson was injured and everybody just like he's not going to bounce back. then that came out, and he kind of just overtook that position for a little bit, which was a weird kind of two-headed monster. That was like really odd. But I had Brees, and a lot of people were like, well, he's gonna be behind Michael Carter and all these other guys, and it was like, to Zoo, I think Zoo had always brought this point up, is like, they traded up to get him. So you don't trade up to get running backs, especially in this market of how we treat running backs and pay running backs, unless you're going to use this guy. And if you watched him at Iowa State, like, he was the complete 3-down back, 6'1", 215, 220, so he's got the size to be like a bruiser. It just took a little bit of time, but man, it was, I think the highest point, even though like I made the playoffs in the fantasy league, the highest moment I felt like I had was when he was playing Denver before he got injured. He had that swing pass, I think, that went for like 60-something yards. And I was just like, yo, this guy's going to be a league winner. It's going to be the league winner. I was like, this dude is going to be a league. This dude I got, and I don't even know when I drafted. I have to look it up. But like a guy that wasn't overdrafted. And I was just on cloud nine. And then he, obviously ended up having like a serious knee injury. And, hopefully he's able to recover to, I guess, a level where he's able to be drafted, maybe a little bit higher next year. We'll see. But for me, man, it's just the honorary guy. Breece Hall. He was the dude I thought was really gonna put me over the top and have me maybe in those top 2 seeds in my league. So
he was well on his way to Rookie of the Year too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If he had kept that going. So I mean, I got to go with the other one. I think the other obvious one, the other Dameon Pierce. I think he's the big one this year. I know he's only got 4 touchdowns. I think he's kind of been in a drought a bit, but he was their entire offense all year, man. They could not throw the ball for shit. And, this guy's put up nearly 1,000 yards in the first 14 games. Pretty impressive for any rookie. And just the way this guy runs, man. I mean, do you see that truck that he had on that Cowboys secondary?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. The fact that some people passed on this guy in the actual NFL draft, maybe saying he's undersized or whatever. I don't know. I'm looking at it. Obviously, they don't have a flow of offense for him to get enough touches in the red zone. And that's just the problem with being on a team that's 1-11 and 1. I guess they tied 1 game. But yeah, man. So I mean, the other 2 I considered, I guess, were the 2 wideouts, but they were just been a little too inconsistent. That's Olave and Garrett Wilson. They both kind of had slumps where they really just couldn't get it going, and partially that's quarterback issues, as we've loved to talk about here. Zach Wilson, with Garrett Wilson, and he was way better with Flacco. So I got to stick with Dameon Pierce here, man. I just think that once they can start getting a couple more pieces, maybe actually getting a good quarterback, one of the 2 in the draft this year. And then maybe getting some actual passing wideouts, right? So that they can actually move the ball in multiple facets, maybe build up that O-line. He's going to be a good fantasy piece for years to come, but I am interested to see if he gets overly drafted next year, a little too high in the draft. His value might be a bit high. So I'd be a little cautious with him, but he's probably still going to win Rookie of the Year this year.
That's a good pick, because I remember Dameon Pierce. The preseason hype was real, man.
It
once,
was.
the hype was real, because I've never heard of this player until preseason. People kept talking about Dameon Pierce, PFF grading him like as an all-timer in the preseason as a rookie running back. So man, people drafted him high, and they got rewarded with a nice. He was a pretty solid RB2 throughout like the entire year.
Yep.
Like he was a nice RB2, man. Before me, man, for once I'm not going to go with RB, man. I'm going to go with wide receiver, man. I'm going with Garrett Wilson. I'm going with Garrett Wilson. He's definitely been highs and lows, especially in the beginning of the year when, like, Flacco, he went off that huge 100-yard game, and that's when you're like, okay, this dude's the real deal. This dude's the real deal. And then Zach Wilson had to crash the party and make him look irrelevant. Only Zach Wilson can make Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson look like nobodies.
Yep.
That's some power right there, man. That's some power. That's some influence at the quarterback
Wasted
position.
talent.
But now you got Mike White in there. And this dude's been an absolute animal, man. He's getting 15 targets, 8 targets, 7 targets. Been super, super productive. Been finally getting touchdowns. You only had like 4 touchdowns this year, man. But I think as a future player, man, this dude, just looking at his rookie year resume, he beat Keyshawn's record as a rookie wide receivers and receiving yards, man. And that dude's definitely an all-timer for the Jets. Yep. This dude's going to be better than him. He's on pace to get over 1,000 yards as a rookie. Already has 4 touchdowns. I project more with Mike White throwing it, because Mike White could really throw a deep ball. Like, he likes airing it out, even though sometimes he gets picked, right? But he likes airing the football out. And I like watching the Jets a little more with Mike White under center, especially with his weapons out there. So for me, I got to go with Garrett Wilson. And this guy, I'm gonna be looking at him next year, man.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
He's
I
a
want
shooter,
Him and
yeah,
Olave.
yeah, like him and Olave, Olave this year. But for the quarterback situations he's been in,
Yeah.
like that is tough too, and he's been extremely good. Like his route running abilities, I remember that's what they raved him for, and has translated in his rookie year. So, like, shout out this rookie class because this rookie class of receivers has been really, really talented. And you got George Pickens also, who's had a nice rookie season too.
Year.
So a lot of these wide receivers.
Jamison. On his first catch, he scored though. Jameson Williams, man, for the Lions.
Oh yeah, Jameson Williams.
Another guy next year.
And I can't believe I forgot Christian Watson. I can't believe I forgot about this dude. Yeah. Christian Watson, who comes out of nowhere and has like 8 touchdowns. This dude's ridiculous.
He's a touchdown hog for sure.
He could get consideration for rookie of the year this year.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking about that. Like based on production, yeah, you can make an argument for Christian Watson because he started the year out with the drop, but now he ending it with the bang. We're forgetting about that drop right now. He learned his lesson. No dropping from Aaron Rodgers deep balls. Because if he got a touchdown, like man, he got the speed and he got the height too. Like he's a really tall dude for a guy that big to be able to run that fast. Yeah, Christian Watson, man. Shout outs to him because man, this wide receiver class, man, really impressive.
Maybe Green Bay doesn't even have to. Like say, I know they have their philosophy for not drafting receivers in the first round, but maybe it works. Maybe it's just they just know what they're doing. I still think they should get next year, and this is for whoever the quarterback, Rodgers, Jordan Love, whoever. They should get another receiver in the first round, like an elite slot. Like if they get an elite slot guy, like a guy that can get open underneath, I think that's going to make their offense even more like. Because to me, you can never take enough receivers. You can always have guys, even if they're not all on the field, you can always take elite receivers because I just think about like they probably wouldn't have been able to got I don't know. You're probably not Watson. They probably would have been able to got Dobbs because Dobbs was like later 4th round. But like having Dobbs and Watson on the outside and having like a guy like Jameson Williams or like even when Elijah Moore was like pissed off and was like, I want to go away from the Jets. If you just had him like as a third receiver in the slot, like man. They would be nasty in Green Bay. I don't care who's playing quarterback because you got 3 guys who can go take the top off, get open underneath, run good routes. But yeah, Christian Watson's a really good pick. He has a good choice, chance to be rookie of the year. Go ahead.
And he'd be learning from one of the best slots formerly in Randall Cobb, man. I mean, he was a great slot receiver for years for Rodgers. Obviously, took some stints elsewhere and came back. And yeah, I mean, if you could keep him for one more year and have him mentor a young guy, there's no reason not to do that.
So who you got for I guess you say best value pick?
I mean, you know where I'm going, boys. This man was going guaranteed backup quarterback for most people, 14th, 15th, 16th round.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of people, and this is mainly because of all the other quarterback struggles that we saw with a lot of the guys in their twilight years. Brady, I don't want to say Wilson's in his twilight years, but Russell looked like he was in his twilight years this year, unfortunately. Aaron Rodgers, sorry, Zoo. There's another one right there. That there were a lot of quarterbacks that, we just kind of saw falter. And if you happen to take a guy like Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, and you had him in your arsenal for weeks, 6 through 12 to kind of make that playoff push, Justin Fields was, he was a league winner there for about 6 weeks. And then he got injured, missed a little time, had an untimely bye week for a lot of people, which was kind of stinks, in week 14 bye week. That's unfortunate if you relied on that. Zoo, you must have scraped by. But
shout out to Geno Smith.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. There's another one, another good value pick there. But yeah, man, I got to go with Fields, and I think that's also just forward looking. 10 rushing touchdowns. He's going to break 1,000 yards rushing this year. Not the prettiest of passing games, but I did think towards the latter half of his the fantasy season, he was cooking a bit, at least getting two passing touchdowns a game. Rushing for one as well. So just for going in the 15th, 16th round, and he's ending at quarterback 5. I mean, you can't really complain there. Best value.
Yeah, that's a good pick, man. I got to give shout outs by my boy Trevor Lawrence, man. He's the number 8 fantasy quarterback right now. Even after he's sneaking up there. He has some bad games, like really, really bad. I got a little nervous. I was like, "Ooh, this is my dude." But Trevor Lawrence showing that. I'm telling you, next year that will be his finally breakout. He's a top 10 quarterback right now, but next year he's gonna jump in that top 5 where he's gonna make an impact. Because number 8 quarterback, that's still okay. That's okay. I want top 5 production, man. But for me this year, as a sleeper, man, the late rounder, Jamal Williams, man.
Mm.
This man.
God.
Watching him, like as a DeAndre Swift shareholder in my recent acquisition, I had to watch a lot more Lions games this year. And this man at the goal line, absolute animal. First try goes in every time. First and first. He just gets in. Like, I watch other running backs struggle at the goal line. Maybe the defense, predictable. Like, it's predictable. Everybody knows what the Lions are doing, but they can't stop him. This dude's unstoppable at the goal line, man. He has 14 touchdowns already. 14.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, we were all Swift shareholders.
Yeah, like DeAndre Swift, like obviously young running back. This guy, pretty much Tony Pollard upside. Like his speed is, even when I watch DeAndre Swift, his speed is just there. His pass catching ability is just way better than Jamal Williams. Like, we thought that was going to be it. But Jamal Williams, man, the coach loves this dude. He got double-digit carries in every single game this season. We thought this guy's the RB2. No, this guy took the job, man. RB1. He got double-digit carries every single game with multiple 20-carry games. And this guy produced. He even had a couple of big runs, too. And not as many as DeAndre Swift could have gotten. But this dude was just mad productive. He's averaging 13 points. He's number 11, technically RB1 this year, 13 points a game. Shout out to Jamal Williams, because people just thought him as a handcuff for D Swift. Nah, he the RB1. D Swift was the handcuff this year.
Ooh.
It was a
don't shoot me in the heart like that.
It was a little reverse Uno right there, man. Like, that's what happened. Jamal Williams took his job, man. The minute Swifty got a little nick on his ankle, his shoulder. Oh, Jamal took the job and never let it go. Because he had some monster games. Like, he was so valuable this year that I was able to flip Jamal Williams in one league for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like 3 weeks ago, I made a trade. He needed a running back. Wow. I need a wide receiver. And you look at that, it's like, points-wise, it's a pretty fair trade. But if you look at the beginning of the season, they ain't close at all. But my goodness, man. Like, his value came up that much that I was able to get Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is also a stud this year. Like,
another great value pick.
He's incredible. Watching that guy play, like, he got injured and he's still a top 10 wide receiver. He's incredible. He's incredible.
Target hound.
Yeah. Absolute hound, man.
It's gonna be interesting to see how him and Jameson distribute next year with Jameson coming back. Like, him being fully.
Jared Goff got some weapons, man.
Yeah.
He got some.
Jared Goff's had a nice season.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he has. You know,
quietly.
Jared Goff, he kind of, I think he has the weird where he's like, I think he's better at home versus away. I think he has one of those weird fantasy type things. I think I was hearing that or whatever when I was listening to one of those podcasts. But yeah, he had a sneaky good year.
They're making a playoff push too, man. They're about only, I think, a game.
Listen, them being favored with the Vikings last week, and then actually
Vegas do something, man.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Yeah, Vegas, they always know what they're doing. But yeah, it's going to be interesting in the NFC to see how they end up finishing out. But for me, going off of Zoo's point with Trevor, Christian Kirk for me, and I always personalize a lot of this stuff because he was on my team. For him being a top 10 receiver, I know there was some hype at the beginning of the year, like he's going to be good, because Trevor's going to take a step. But for him being a top 10 receiver currently, I would say that's even surprised me because when I picked him, everybody likes to feel like when they're picking guys in their draft, they're like, yeah, this guy's a very. But sometimes you just take a pick. It's like, I'm just going to be like, let's see what happens here. Like, because at the time, I want to say when I took him, it wasn't like I was thinking he was going to be receiver one. I thought he was going to be a nice flex play and maybe, receiver 2 high end. But he's been my best receiver on my team, and he's had I think 3 100-yard games, multiple like I think 10 9-reception games. So for me, I feel like I don't think there was a lot of people valuing where he's at, and I almost think next year with Calvin Ridley come in, he might even be more valuable because I truly don't think he's a number one receiver and like being the number one guy for any type of team that's had aspirations for the playoffs. So I do feel like when Calvin Ridley comes in, not gonna bank on Evan Ingram. I mean, I know he's been going crazy the last couple games, but he's too hot cold. He's too hot cold. He's too hot cold for me.
Oh man.
So I think Christian Kirk is going to have an even better year next year with Calvin Ridley, assuming Calvin Ridley comes in as can play to a receiver one type of level. I think he's gonna have a lot of value. You could probably give me even later, because I don't think he's gonna get drafted over Calvin Ridley. So that's a guy I have for value. And one other guy I want to mention fantasy wise is a tight end from Tennessee. I think he's going high next year. He's been I cannot pronounce his name. He's from Maryland. It's a really hard name to pronounce, but I just recently picked him up on waivers and he got me 17 points, and he's been flirting around that 17 to 11 point range. He's athletic as hell, like super, super athletic. And I know Austin Hooper dominates like the snaps, but he's a super nice. I think he came out the combine. He's like 250. Yeah. Ran like 4.5 in the 40. He's going to be a guy. I don't, Tannehill's still going to be there. I don't think Malik Willis is going to take his job, but Treylon Burks, him being injured, I think is opening him up. And I think they're realizing like, oh, here's a guy at tight end that we'll be able to have next year that we can use in our passing attack to help our quarterbacks. Because like I say, it all comes down to who you got throwing the ball, but also who's catching. So if you can get more weapons in that Tennessee offense, maybe that extends Derrick Henry's shelf life. Who knows?
Hey, they've been searching for one since Delaney Walker, man, and that man was there for way too long. Carried some of my early fantasy teams back in the day, man. Delaney Walker. So yeah. Hey man, they might have found a gem.
Yeah, for real. I'm not sure. I think they got him in like the fourth or fifth round. So yeah, just another guy to keep a look out for. But like you say, fantasy this year, it's been ups and downs with it. Everybody knows what the strategy is going to be. Right now, I think I'm gonna let Zoo go on a heater on some lessons that you've learned from fantasy this year, and maybe some strategies you might take into 2023.
Oh yeah, man! Number one lesson, man. Don't fade the QB, man. This is the biggest lesson I learned this year, man.
There you go.
I'm telling you right now, everybody knew Josh Allen was gonna be good. I, for one, knew for sure because I drafted Josh Allen the year he broke out and averaged 25 a game when he was a 13th rounder. That was my boy. So Josh Allen, that dude helped me win some games. So Josh Allen, man, everybody knew who's a stud. Like there's a tier level for quarterbacks there. I think it's like pretty obvious. Number 2 guy, my boy Patrick Mahomes, man. This guy, everybody knows this dude's an all-timer, one of the greatest QBs of all time. The guy just puts up another 25-point game. 25 points per game season again. And my boy Jalen Hurts last year, that was my ride or die last year, man. This year, obviously, he got better because he got A.J. Brown, man. So that tier level right there at 25 a game, the drop-off from those 3 guys to these waiver wire dudes is a freaking chasm. When you are starting Aaron Rodgers and you're getting 4 points in fantasy football, you ain't winning any games.
No.
When you start Derek Carr last week and you get 2 points, you ain't winning any games. When you start Russell Wilson and dropping you 7 points, you ain't winning any games. I don't care if Amon-Ra going off for 30. You're still losing. That happened to me. I'm telling you, man. I don't care you have A.J. Brown going for 30. You're still losing if your QB dropping you 9 points. And like all these older quarterbacks that are getting real, like the Tom Brady's, Aaron Rodgers right now, they're showing their age. Obviously, they're not the greatest rushing quarterbacks, so they rely on passing touchdowns. Like a lot. You need like 3 to 4 passing touchdowns to be able to be equal value to these guys that can throw 2 to 4 touchdowns as well as rush for another touchdown. So that tier drop off, man, I faded every single league. And I'm looking back in all my leagues. I'm in 5 leagues this year. All the teams that are in like the top tier, like playoff, like contenders, they all got an elite quarterback. Mm-hmm. They either got a Hurts, a Mahomes, a Josh Allen, like even like a Joe Burrows this year. He's a little underrated.
He's had a great year.
Yeah, he had a terrific year this year. He really came on strong. Like all these teams are doing well. They have a quarterback because a quarterback can cancel out a donut game from like a Dalvin. He gets you 7 points. It's all good. Jalen Hurts goes off, rushes for like a 50-yard touchdown or something. Like I'm telling you,
points right there.
Exactly. Like when you have you got these Matt Ryan type quarterbacks that can't move their legs. It is a disaster to watch them play football if they don't throw passing touchdowns. And sometimes you just don't have those days. Like you don't get any passing touchdowns. Maybe it's an elite defense, but you get those cheap yards on the ground, man. That's what these guys provide. Yeah, Justin Fields this year. He ain't do much passing yards. Like his receiving yards props are always like 160 yards. but don't matter because his rushing ability. Now he might be an all-timer. He looking like Michael Vick out there, like in his prime, running the football. So these rushing quarterbacks, man, I knew all about the rushing quarterbacks. I was trying to find one in the late round this year. Couldn't get it done. I know with a bunch of these prototypical, stereotypical, standalone quarterbacks throwing dime. All I see is Russell Wilson getting picked off. And my Lord, that has sunk so many. And I'm telling you, Aaron Rodgers.
There you go.
I picked him out of passion. Because I knew without Devontae Adams, like, okay, obviously he's going to throw less touchdowns. He lost his best receiver. They're going to be more in the running game. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, 1A, 1B. I knew they're going to be more of a running attack. But I took that brother. And that dude sunk I had to change the team name. I was king of the North because Aaron Rodgers. I had to change my team name of how disgraceful he was. I had to wave him.
What is this ranking?
Those pocket passers, man. It's those. I'd say the only two, Zoo, I think you might agree here. The only two pocket, and I still think Mahomes isn't a pocket passer, but he's also not a rushing quarterback. He does run. But he doesn't, I mean, he had that one dive.
He leads his team in rushing a lot. Like a lot.
Sure. Pacheco's actually had some nice games this year for them. But I'd say Herbert and Burrow are probably the only two, like, still, and they can both still run the ball if they want to.
Joe Burrows is an underrated runner.
Yeah. And Herbert's got some nice clutch runs too to get, a first down when needed. But I'd say Herbert's mechanics and Burrow's throwing mechanics within the pocket are probably the two best. Josh Allen can do whatever he wants. Mahomes could do whatever he wants. Hurts has been working on it this year, right?
Yeah.
Fields, I think, that's where he's at. He's trying to work on that.
Yeah, he needs to take
time
that.
in the pocket. You need time in the pocket too. So I agree, Zoo. I think that also feeds into, I guess, my lesson learned this year, and that's actually getting to know changes in teams' systems year over year, because a lot of people. I mean, Najee Harris went 5th in our draft. Yeah. He's had great years in the past, right?
8,
but you got to look at the change to the quarterback situation. Is it Trubisky? Is it Pickett? Is it somebody else losing a huge dynasty quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger? You got to take that into account. For your point, the Vikings talking about moving to a more pass-heavy offense. Dalvin Cook was going to suffer a bit there. Kamara, very similar, uncertain situation of quarterbacks. So that's something you got to monitor going in, no matter how good of a season they had in the past. Debo's another prime example. More weapons coming.
What did I say about Debo?
Yeah, all right.
I gotta take this W with Debo Samuel, man. I had him as my biggest bust going the first round, man. And I remember also saying this: Brandon Ayuk might be able to outscore Debo Samuels this year, and he went really late. And right now, currently, I'm based on total points. Obviously, Debo missed a couple games, so it's not on a fair scale. Brandon Ayuk has scored more points than Debo Samuel.
And he's had another nice value pick there that, Zoo
on
the free agency wire for me. I appreciate that. but then, you look on the other side, I think a lot of people were fading Fields because he had a new offensive system. They thought that he was going to be forced to throw in the pocket.
No, I don't think they were fading Fields. They were just fading the Bears.
The Bears in general, right, sure. But hey man, their offense was going to be him and him alone when they decided to buy into him. And they actually did that. So he's a guy that benefited from a change in an offensive system. So that's something I'm learning. You got to just look at the offseason changes, look at some of those media talks, right? What are teams talking about? What are they wanting to do? And hoping they're not lying to you, right, Zoo? Like the Vikings didn't lie to us about Justin Jefferson, and we're seeing the benefits of that. So that's definitely something I'm keeping in mind.
Bringing up the point about the quarterbacks with the new age quarterbacks, and I would just say the new crop of quarterbacks. I think the thing that we're noticing too is that with all the quarterbacks that are coming into the league now, primarily, all of them have a base level of athleticism to where I don't think you could say they're considered running quarterbacks, but they all have that ability to do that at an elite level. Now, as you get older, things change. Now, Brady was never considered that. Rodgers in his heyday was considered that for sure.
Yep.
But I think every level of quarterback that comes into the league now is going to have that base of athleticism where, they're going to have the ability to get not just, the little 5 to 10 yard scamper to get the first down. Like they could get maybe some 50-yard games within that at a minimum. And it brings me to a point. I wonder if we'll ever get in and it really depends on what type of league you play in, but we draft quarterbacks, like running quarterbacks, and then draft their handcuff because there's going to be so many quarterbacks in the league that are able to run. Now, of course, you would want to do that in a 2-quarterback league. But if I'm in a 2-quarterback league, I definitely would want to draft a lot of quarterbacks and draft some handcuffs because I think it's all good. Like nobody's going to have the Lamar level athleticism, right? Or Justin Fields. That's like an anomaly. Yeah. But there are going to be a lot of guys, like I say, that can run. So like that's going to be the basis of like if you're because I watch a lot of college football. There's not really any quarterbacks that are coming. They're even coming into the league this year, like that are like, they're not an athlete. Like all of them can move around really well, and it's not just they can move around and function in the pocket. Like they can do that to an extent, but they can move and extend the play and break off a 20-yard run. So that's going to be very interesting with fantasy, for me. And part of my lesson, I think I would say is, everybody has their RB drafting strategy, but you can never go wrong drafting RBs really late, and like flyers. Like you can never go wrong doing that at the end of the draft. Because a lot of people, they take their kickers or defense. That's one lesson. I'm never going to take a defense. Streaming, finding a defense every week, I feel like has worked really good for me. I had an infatuation with Denver because they had those couple of weeks where they were always kind of consistently at least giving you 10 points. So it was kind of like a safe keep. But a couple of weeks. I think it was maybe two weeks ago where I actually just dropped and said, let me try Cleveland because they're homecoming. That actually won me a week. So I think I'm going to adopt that strategy from now on.
Dropped a 30.
Yeah, 30 piece. So I think I'm definitely going to adopt that that strategy even more going into next year. But yeah, taking flyers on just rookie running backs, handcuffs, whatever you want to do, just taking flyers at the end of the draft. However long your draft is. Like you said, for me, it was a 14-team draft. So taking them towards the end of those rounds, that is something I'm definitely going to do even more because I did it this year, but a lot of it was just like I said, I watched college football and Kenneth Walker, for an example. I didn't care where I drafted him. I just knew I was going to, take him because I just saw that he should have been a Heisman finalist. Yeah. I should have, and looking back on it, I was kind of playing with fire because I could have almost not been able to take him because, at that time, I want to say, what's the back for Tampa Bay? Rashard White. I think Rashard White got taken.
Rashard White.
Yeah, he got taken right. And that kind of triggered me to be like, let me just jump on Kenneth right quick because Rashard White got taken like a couple picks earlier. So I was like, yeah, somebody's probably going to have a beeline on Kenneth Walker soon. So I just went ahead and jumped on top of him. So yeah, that's going to be my strategy for next year. Just taking more RBs later in the draft because I feel like you can never go wrong. And receiver, and and every league's different because you have like 10, 12, 14 team league, but I just feel like there's always a bunch of receivers that you can just go pluck from the waiver wire. You can't go pluck running backs off the waiver wire, especially in a 14 team league. You're not going to be able to find them. You're not.
Unless you get quick on an injury.
Yeah, you get lucky. Like perfect example was I had who was my handcuff for Kenneth Walker, Travis Homer. Put him in there, saw the 12 points on there. I was like, let's go, 12 points. That means we'll probably get 8. I think he ended up with like 4 or 5. Yeah. Every handcuff's not the same. Every
surprise win.
Not the same. Yeah. Every handcuff is not the same. So like I said, that wraps up our fantasy this year. Like you say, we're definitely expanding our type of fantasy coverage. We may even get into the basketball realm of that, even though it's a little bit more difficult because that is every day. But for now, we're just going to be focused on football. So if you guys want to get any updates on that, make sure you tune into the Bullhead_pod. Really quick, best bets of week 15. Not sure if the guys have anything that interests them or intrigues them at all, but Peebush, what do you got for this week?
I'm looking at this Chargers-Titans game, man. Chargers -3. I just like the way they're looking, getting everybody back healthy. Mike Williams, finally, beautiful to see him have a nice game. Able to make it through the entire game as well. And actually, I'm looking at a specific player prop in this one, and that's Gerald Everett. So I guess one stat I saw was the Titans give up, or I should say, teams playing against the Titans target their tight ends 30% more than the league average. And Gerald Everett has covered his reception total in 10 out of 14 games. So with the more options that Herbert has, it's only going to open up for guys like Josh Palmer and Gerald Everett. So that's a specific player prop, but I do also think I would take the Chargers because the Titans are on a 3-game skid right now, and they're not looking too hot as of late. Not that they're going to lose the AFC South because we know how poor that division is, but the Jags are creeping up too. So, yeah, that's the game I'm looking at this week.
Man, this week of betting, man. Those Kansas City Chiefs, man, I was seeing real pretty when they were up 26-0. I was feeling real good. I was like, yeah, dude, that pick six, I was like, yo, what an ass whooping, man. I'm like, there's no way. And then Russell Wilson has his best game of the year.
Yep. Sure, he did.
I'm still blown away. They were able to, like, I give them props because mentally being that tough, you're down that much. 26-0. And you're still fighting. And it was a 6-point game. Come on, Cup. Come on, Chiefs. They let me down, man.
Somebody made a call to Vegas. I ain't gonna lie. Patrick Mahomes might have been. He might have been.
Oh, he threw three
INTs. Yeah, come on, man.
He threw 3 INTs.
Yeah, I don't know.
He threw 3 INTs. I was like, what's up? Oh, those Kansas City Chiefs
makes you wonder.
Yeah, Vegas.
His worst.
That safety by the Jets is what saved me on that cover in 9.5 against the Bills, man. And it still hit the under. I was like, oh, thank you, weather.
That weather was awful.
I told you guys. Yeah, that was a good one.
Oh man, but for me though, this week, man, I'm gonna go back to my Jets, man. I'm gonna go back to the Jets, man. I'm taking the money line over the Lions, man. Like I love how you guys mentioned Jared Goff's home away splits. The home and away split is the real deal for Jared Goff because as a guy that I've talked about the QB roulette wheel, I've had to stream Jared Goff in many weeks. And many weeks of Jared Goff on the road is a bunch of 1-point performances, 5-point performances, 7-point performances. And I'm just raging out of my mind because he drops a 26-piece at home. I'm like, Jared Goff, baby. I'm on Ross St. Brown. You got D. Swift, Jamal Williams on offense. This offense is rolling. Go to the road. What's the bad, man? I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man. This QB position is going to give me hell all year. So I am fading Jared Goff, and my God. I swear to God, I have started over 13 quarterbacks this year in my fantasy football teams.
So you're not starting Goff this week. That's what you're saying.
No. I waved that brother when he dropped me that 1-point performance, man. that is irredeemable. Even though I said it about Aaron Rodgers, I gave him one more chance, and he dropped 12 points against the Chicago Bears. So I don't know, man. Oh, these QBs this year.
So you're taking a money line, Zoo?
Money line. The odds are even right now. So money line, Jets, home. And they've been pretty competitive. They were competitive against the Bills, even though they lost. Competitive against the Vikings and lost, but they've been competitive against good teams. So I'm taking them over the Lions team. That's probably going a little too high right now. They're riding a little too high right now with all these wins right now.
They're coming down. They're probably going to come down.
And they're running into a good defense.
Elite defense. And like I said, Jared Goff, man, he ain't going to have a
there you go.
So I'm fading him.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I'm probably going to pick the Jets one because you beat a division opponent. Everybody thinks now like you're the bee's knees, as they would probably say in old term. I don't know. I kind of do wonder, though, I think people, you brought this up, if the Lions would have just somehow making it to the playoffs, I think it's going to be still very, very hard. But if they make it into the playoffs, they do have a formula. And like I said, they're going to be on the road, so that might actually not even be a good bet for them in the playoffs because Jared Goff just may not play as well. But I don't know, man. They're DeAndre Swift hasn't been the greatest, and Jamal Williams is their lead back. But having those two options are nice. Jameson Williams, like you say, having that ability to come in and catch a touchdown, that's pretty exciting if you're a Lions fan. So you're going to have him. I think DJ Chark's on that team too. Like they have 3 really solid receivers. Defense is playing at a high level. I don't know. They could be sneaky, man. They could be sneaky. If they could do some like ball control, I would like to say, trust me. If I'm one of the NFC elite, I'm like, yeah, come on, bring the Lions. I want to play them. But you may not want to wish that because that they could do something could be sneaky and could make playoffs very interesting in the NFC because it's the AFC. I feel like it's a little bit more established. Man, it's a crapshoot in the NFC. I know the Eagles and Cowboys are just 1A and 1B, but I don't know. The Eagles and the Cowboys, like they've shown warts throughout the season, especially the Cowboys with the Texans game. That's exactly why I just can never ever trust the Cowboys. When you do games like that against the Texans, it's just something with it. It's permeating something within that franchise.
Sean? What did Colin Cowherd say? It's like an Adam Sandler movie, man. You know how it's going to turn out, even though it might be entertaining.
Yeah. Like you say, Uncut Gems? Great movie.
They went 14-2.
Yeah, great movie.
Still
But
lose,
then-
man.
Yeah, you have some duds with Adam Sandler. That was a great analogy. I thought that was hilarious. I had to
Yeah,
post
that was good.
And that is a reason why the people who watch this podcast, you should be tuning in to the Bullheaded_pod page, because I post clips like that, things that I find that are humorous throughout the week, relating to sports, and I also post a lot of facts throughout the story and on the page. So make sure you tune in to that. Subscribe to our page on all the streaming platforms. Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts. Also, make sure you're tuning into our Twitter. I'm trying to update that as much as I can. It's just Twitter's kind of a weird app these days. Also, get on our TikTok, Bullheaded Bullheaded 864. Same content I post on Instagram, but just a little bit of a different twist because of the different type of platform. So, for me, Zoo, and P Bush, we are out.